Right, so we are recording now. Welcome everyone to this Finland Azure user group meeting. Today we are going to talk about Azure DevOps and GitHub and well, kind of my experience as an Azure DevOps dude with a quite long background on Microsoft products, how I see as a more or less newbie with the GitHub, how the features are mapping from Azure DevOps and well, a little bit comparison between the features that they provide, and then also look some examples of how those two different platforms they can integrate together. Well, short intro on Finland Azure user group. We are roughly 1,600 people now, mostly in Finland. We have been doing this quite a long time already, and we as an organization, well, community, we have also been organizing this IGLO-conf for Finnish Azurians, which is a seminar, two-day seminar held usually in January. Let's see what's going to happen this year since the COVID. But since the COVID, we have created this Azure tips and tricks that sessions that we are using for giving short introductions on some specific topics on Azure. You can Google it from Finland Azure user group in YouTube to find the recordings that we have been doing earlier already. So really short about myself. I'm a consultant in Zure, and Zure is something one of the pioneers in Azure in Finland, and we are our main focus is software development on top of the platform as a service based solutions in Azure. We also do training for Azure, and of course this consulting related to Azure architectures and how do you take Azure in use. For example, we have Azure MVP, so it's a good house to learn Azure, and that's why I usually say that I learn from the best and pass that knowledge to the next guy in my trainings, for example. Right, let's go to the topics. So today we're talking about GitHub. First things first, especially when I'm consulting, sometimes my customers are giving this kind of statements that, okay, we can put those code to the GitHub, even though they're talking about some other system. And so there's sometimes misunderstanding that GitHub is actually only version control. So it is not only, it's a huge, nice platform for development. It's really collaborative development platform for DevOps actions and development actions. And it, of course, it has a Git version control in there, but yeah, the Git is the open source distributed version control by Linus Torvalds, and make sure that you don't confuse GitHub to be only Git. At the same time, the comment that we should put that on the Azure, and people are talking about then Azure DevOps. That's again a little bit confusion on the terminology. Azure DevOps, well, it can be integrated with Azure, so the single sign-on and the billing of the licenses are related to Azure, but it can be also You can have your personal Azure DevOps account without without even owning any Azure subscriptions. But anyways, Azure DevOps is also huge and nice platform for development and DevOps activities for small teams or even enterprise level development. So both of they are really nice platforms for doing your development actions and all your needs that you have for the DevOps, especially for cloud. They are both really nice. One misunderstanding also with Azure DevOps is that it's only for Azure. Well, it's first of all, it's even if it's Microsoft owned platform, it's and Microsoft built platform, it's done for, well, the purpose is it's going to for any technology and any platform. It doesn't need to be in cloud, or especially not for the Azure. It can be whatever cloud provider you have, and also for on-premise or perhaps for mobile deployments, also for Apple and Android marketplaces. And yes, of course, there is Azure repositories, Azure repos, which are Git-based version, which provides Git-based version control for you. And when it comes to Azure, there's if you go to Azure documentation and look at what is available for DevOps category, you can find some product lifts that Microsoft has done in the documentation. For example, these are the products they are promoting there. And if you look at what of those are actually inside the Azure DevOps platform, so Azure DevOps platform itself is a modular platform that has multiple products. Maybe the most used one are the Azure Boards, which is used for planning, tracking, and collaboration with your team and teams. And doing work item and backlog management and your application portfolio management. Then you have your automation side, so the Azure Pipelines for your CI/CD functionalities. So you can build and release your code, and of course the Azure repositories. So with the Git repositories, well, actually there is also the old school theme for the version control, but the de facto is that the people are using Git nowadays also with Azure repos. And then you have a packaging system there, so you can have packages with Azure artifacts. You can have those to be your private feeds, so your team can distribute privately, for example, NuGet packages for your .NET projects. And then you have your Azure test plans for acceptance testing, and more or less manual planning and tracking and executing manual testing. And also, if you have for example, dedicated testers to do explorative testing in your products, then you can record those explorative testing sessions in Azure test plans. Okay, so quite heavily Azure DevOps emphasized product portfolio showcased in Azure documentation. Then you have your GitHub side. So there's a GitHub Actions, which is kind of a CI/CD pipeline work functionality with steroids. So you have with GitHub Actions you can do a lot of things also related to collaboration and automation of your general development tasks in GitHub. but mainly perhaps in this context, it provides the similar functionality that Azure Pipelines provides for CI/CD pipelines to Azure. Then you have of your operations. Well, for the development, you have your application insights. You can have a telemetry injected your applications and analyze how your application has been used, how it's performing, and then you can also monitor the Azure infrastructure of your solutions with the Azure Monitor. Then for me, it seems that one critical and logical product is missing here. So the GitHub has this GitHub packages, which is providing more or less exactly the same thing that Azure Artifacts is providing. So you can have your private package feed to be used in your projects, or public packages in GitHub. And if you look at from the GitHub side, we have in the GitHub's marketplace, we have applications, apps that are related to Azure. So there's actually two done by Microsoft. One is to connect your repository with Azure Pipelines, and the other one is the connect your issue management and commits and pull requests to link those with the work items on Azure Boards side. So those applications are available. So if you want to do your integration from the GitHub to Azure Pipelines and Boards, you use those applications, apps. Then you have your GitHub Actions, and if you type Azure, there's going to be a lot of actions that well, Microsoft is providing. So if you look at the Azure repository, Azure organization in GitHub, you get a lot of actions that they are providing, mainly interacting with Azure or deployments to Azure or infrastructure configurations and so on. So plenty of functionality related to Azure development in GitHub already. And let's go one by one a little bit for, well, different perspectives. So if you look at the functionalities of backlog and work and team management, in the GitHub side, it's kind of a lean, agile, really collaborative experience. You can create issues, and you can assign those issues. You can categorize those issues with labels to kind of make a issue to be some type of work item. If you compare it analogy to Azure Boards, so you can have a label bug to issue, so it's kind of then considered to be bug or enhancement or epic or so on. So you use the labeling kind of typing the work item type into the issue. So there's no concept of work item type. There's only labels in GitHub. Then there's this projects for prioritization. So you can have a quite simple Kanban boards in the GitHub, and in there you can drag and drop issues and actually comments. There can be comments and issues in the Kanban board as a kind of a cards, and you can prioritize those works. And then you have this milestones concept or artifact there that can be used to group multiple issues, for example, as a feature, or maybe you are you're targeting to for some release, maybe more minimal viable product contains some list of issues, or and this way you are grouping those, or project phases, or actually sprints. Sprints can be milestones, so you have your sprint 1, sprint 2 with some kind of a target date. You cannot have a start and end date. You just have a target date there for the milestones. And if you compare to Azure Boards, well, it's also lean agile, but more like corporate-ish. So if you are big enterprise and you have a multi-vendor development going on and multiple development teams building your application portfolio, then Azure Boards has a much more richer, maybe more structured way to handle multiple teams and multiple backlogs, and the dependencies between those backlogs. I don't know, work item view in Azure Boards is more closest to the issues view. Let's see the tools in soon. But I don't know, myself, I don't even usually use this view at all, but I can see that it's kind of a, it tries to be the same view as in issues in GitHub. Collaboration side is really nice in GitHub, so you can talk about issues and pull requests. Really nice, and it's really interactive there and very fluent to use. In Azure Boards, there's first of all, since the work items are always kind of opened as a dialogue, so there is a area for discussions, but it's not so heavily, it's not in the centric way. So in the GitHub side, it's almost everything is somehow you're talking about the issue together. And in Azure Boards, I have seen that discussions have been used this way, but I have also seen that quite fast discussion goes to somewhere else. For example, Teams channel or Slack or something like that. What you can do there, you can have also you can in both places you can assign work. In GitHub, you can actually assign same issue to multiple people, and in Azure Boards, it's you assign work only for one person at a time. But then again, you have a hierarchy of the work items. So you can have your epics, which can be multiple features, and those features are then split to stories. And perhaps if you own one story, but you have 3 people doing work for that story, then you might want to have 3 different tasks and assign those tasks to individual people. So you can have multiple people contributing the same item, but there's always ownership of the work item for one person. I like this because this way it's kind of it's known who is responsible to kind of making sure that this is going to be ready. Same time that the team is still giving help for that person. Labeling, there's quite similar thing is tagging in Azure Boards, but it doesn't have the same role. It's not. It's just tags, and over here it's more like you use labels with your automation task usually also, and the project Kanban board is also sometimes using the labeling as a trigger. What you can do in Azure Boards, you can do the same things, but I think a little bit better. Maybe I'm not just used to in GitHub, but planning and prioritizing is much more logical for me in backlogs. And it's more kind of providing the basic things that you expect for Scrum tooling to have. So you have your backlog, you can have your Kanban board, even though the project has that. Then you can have these more sophisticated things, delivery plans to coordinate work between multiple teams and what kind of feature they are doing, and on the time scale and in the calendar time when it's going to be targeted to be ready, and do those teams have a dependencies between themselves. So these kind of things you can model and view and plan in delivery plans. You have your sprint board to concentrating what's currently going on in the sprint. There is the milestones, which is providing similar thing. You have your task board, which is providing inside the sprint the actual tasks that they are doing. At the same time, you just have the issues in the GitHub. Then you can have your visualization in a dashboards. So you can have a quite rich charting and actual analytics on the works that are currently going on with the team or multiple teams. So you can, for example, the system is calculating these key performance indicators such as lead time. So when the new thing came to the backlog and how long it's going to take the team usually to complete the work. So you get this kind of a management side key performance indicators from the Azure Boards automatically, team velocity, lead time, cycle time. Then you can have something that is not even a thing in GitHub. I didn't actually myself, I didn't find anything that is related to team capacity. So if you have to plan capacity and resourcing, there's plenty of functionality in Azure Boards, but I didn't find in GitHub. And it's really good for multi-team project work management. You can have a multiple project in GitHub repository, but the interaction between the projects and how they are, well, they can share issues, but the funny thing was that the same issue can be in multiple states in multiple different projects. So that was weird for me. Then your, well, application portfolio management, it has a really nice way to split the portfolio to larger things and functionalities and use cases and so on. You can do those with the labeling, and I suppose when you are used to GitHub, both has quite the same things. But for me, it seems for corporate side, I would be using Azure Boards. Yeah, maybe really short run about those functionalities. So on the left-hand side, I have a GitHub repository, and you know the key thing there is a repository. And on the right-hand side, I have maybe putting this a little bit smaller than I can open. So we have the board side. I have few extensions here, so don't worry about those. But the core product things, this is the issues relevant. The same as if you go to GitHub, you have your issues here. You have some filtering related to issues. You can have well, it's basically just a list of things. You cannot order anything here. You can just kind of tell what kind of a sorting you want to see. But it's not kind of a, for me, it's not like a backlog because you cannot prioritize here easily. And this is kind of a similar view. So you have some filtering going on over here also. But then if you look at the boards, you have your boards functionalities, and you can have a multiple. Well, actually, let's activate one more level. Epics also. So you can have multiple different levels of backlogs. I think I have only stories here now, so let's keep in there. So, and the same thing, if you go to the GitHub side, there's this projects. And what you can have a little bit different kind of projects. There are a few templates, so you can have a start from the scratch, or then there is a basic Kanban, automated Kanban, which is triggering automatically when we move issues and pull requests to do an in progress and done columns. So it's kind of a behind the scenes, it's tracking how the issues are going on. Kanban with review, bug triaging. So if you have bugs, you can decide what's the priority and so on. So I have created few of those. For example, let's look at that as a big one. So you can have this automation configured per each column there. You can add columns also if you want. If you need to make your workflow different, you can use drag and drop. You can add cards from your issues, and then there was you can also add comments. I think kind of do this. So, and I think these can be also converted later on to issue. So it's going to be shown in the issues list also. So those are the functionalities in GitHub related to backlog management. There is kind of ordering here, but still I'm looking for backlog to prioritize the work. Then what you can have also, you can have a milestone, so we can group things, for example, to sprints. And if I open, for example, add them to the milestones, so put this to sprint 1, then I can go to milestones to sprint 1. So this is more or less the sprint backlog, what yet again no prioritization inside the sprint backlog. Anything else? Well, yeah, labeling. So if you go to, you can have a labels. So let's say that this is an issue and we want to categorize it as a bug. So this, now it's bug, but it can be same time enhancement. So that's kind of a weird thing. So, well, weird for person who is coming for Azure Boards, because you just have your user stories, you have your bugs, but it cannot be the same time both. And if we go to the sprint side on, so kind of the milestones in GitHub, we have a sprints. And actually, let's put those tasks under works of some of the, well, this was closed already. Let's put it active side. So over here we have a way to look at every day, how is the iteration going on, how is the sprint going on. So daily stand-ups could be done here, and usually we could use the people people side. So if there's people in of course the people in the team, so when they are talking about what they are doing, so I have only one person now, so they can tell what are the tasks they are currently doing. So both has work item management and but for example, Azure DevOps, you can have a prioritization of the work. Okay, that's about the management and team management. Let's talk about version control, which is the kind of the most heavily thing that GitHub has. Well, GitHub is famous for. And this is something also that if you look at, for example, Microsoft now, how they are doing marketing and learning experience in different kind of learning tutorials and so on. So they always start by, do you have a GitHub account and where is your GitHub repository? So a lot of push of marketing materials and learning materials that you should try to use GitHub as your version control. And it's a really nice version control and collaborative platform for doing the code. So I'm kind of have a similar feeling, even though I'm coming from Azure DevOps side, and I would perhaps in the next project use GitHub as a version control for my Azure DevOps projects. And there's a really nice interaction between those, so integration, so it doesn't really matter that the code is there. Okay, the code is Git repository. You can browse files, you can review commits, you can see the history. You can do the comparisons between what happened between this and this commit, and you can actually see the blaming and what rows were done and changed by whom and when. You can do the branching. You can do the basic Git things that you expect. You can have a branch rule. Well, the same thing I just wrote here, Git. Yeah, the Azure Repos has all those things also. So they are really quite in the pair with that. Branch rules and the same is the branch policies in Azure repository side. You can have some checks that needs to be, well, you can, for example, require that nothing can go to the main branch, but only via pull request mechanism. You can make it that ensure that status checks are used. You can make sure that at least maybe 2 developers needs to approve the code before it can be merged. So similar things can be in branch policies, and they both have a nice, really nice pull request policy functionalities. Tags and releases. This is quite nice in GitHub. So there is tags. Of course, you can do tags in Azure repositories. And you can see the tagging history and list the tags, but there is no concept of release in the tag side in Azure repositories. In the GitHub, you can have releases. Actually, I don't have anything here yet. Let's do a release, since even though that this is just a documentation. So version 0, and it has this release notes section. So over here would be release notes. So and that's nice because you are actually waiting for when you come to the your release side, you want to see what's happening there. What did the developers do? What we achieved with this release? So, and also another thing is that you can add the executables binaries to the release. So when this build has been done, you can take those artifacts that the build created and add them here to someone to download and install. So I suppose, because since this is an open source world, the idea would be that it's easier for the person just to get the binaries here. So, okay, what errors are made? Target, tag version 0. So this kind of it's always going to add the source code as a zip, but we could have the actual binaries also here added. That's nice. That's kind of a missing. That is missing from Azure DevOps, since releases are handled in the concept of releases is in the Azure pipeline side, and that has the artifacts. So each release that has been done, it has deployment artifacts, but there's no kind of a listing of release nodes against those artifacts. So, but at the same time, Azure Pipelines keeps really nice track of the code commits that are related to release and the work items that are related to release. So you can have a delta. You can investigate 2 different deployments in some specific environment and look at the delta between those. So what commits were committed between those deployments, and what kind of work items were manipulated or was under the works during those deployments. Pull request experience, quite a similar thing, but I have to emphasize again that the collaborative experience in GitHub is really nice. Although Azure repositories has a nice one also nowadays. It's you could almost use it similar way. That I think just in GitHub it's more fluent and fancy, but the similar functionalities are in the pull requests also in Azure repos. Then there are wiki, the work item data and issue data and the pull request comments and everything, they are marked down. So and there are wiki pages that you can have, and those are really actually cool ones in the GitHub pages. So you can, if you have in your repository, you have your markdown there, you can publish that immediately as a static web page for your organization or a specific project. So you can have one wiki for your organization in GitHub and one wiki for each repository that you own there. Then and it's just working, and it actually can be quite nice. There is theming and some theming engines, and so it's quite nice. Azure repositories, we have a wiki, but it doesn't have any kind of a publishing functionality to publish that as a website. It is just the wiki. Build and release, again, more GitHub has this GitHub Actions, and there's plenty of actions for various categories and multiple platforms and technologies and so on. But the GitHub Actions is not only for kind of for CI/CD. It's also generic development actions for the team. So, for example, if someone creates the issue for your team, it can be automating, analyzing that issue, and perhaps give some kind of a reply immediately for the reporter that, hey, thank you for your issue. We are handling this and this kind of things. Perhaps if detecting some kind of words inside the issue, it can automatically label it to be investigated immediately, or bug perhaps, or something like that. But mainly, of course, we are interested in continuous integration and continuous deployments, and it has a plenty of functionality for Azure as a GitHub Actions. And they both have Azure Pipelines and GitHub Actions. They are both YAML based, and kind of this pipeline as a code approach is used in both. If you are not used to do pipelines as a code, you have an option also in Azure Pipelines to use this wizard-based or form-based build and release definitions. So you are kind of using click approach and giving some parameters to the forms of specific deployment tasks and build tasks, and you can use that. It's quite nice to use, but I suppose the pipeline as a code would be the preferred way and the more modern way to do it. And this is also something that most of the other CI/CD tooling is using nowadays as an approach. Not perhaps YAML, but still kind of as a code approach. Releases, as I said, the Azure pipeline is tracking each deployment artifact, which is also the terminology in GitHub. When you build something, you have an artifact that you can call as a deployment artifact, and that is something that you put, you save between different jobs. So, for example, you can have a separate build job and separate build job and actions, and separate testing actions and separate deployment actions, and they are using those artifacts between the jobs. And well, Azure Pipelines is also quite heavily contributed by the community, so there's more than 1,000 extensions already on the pipeline, so plenty of functionality also outside of the Azure scenario. So, and another thing that is I don't find from the GitHub Actions easily that you can have an approval of multi-stage deployment. The approval is actually inside the pipeline, so you have your visualization from development to test to production, and between those you can have a pre-deployment approvals, or even, for example, acceptance testing has been done, so some kind of a release manager or testing coordinator comes to the test environment in Azure Pipelines and accepts that the deployment was successful. So you get your green, red light path approvals, and you can have that inside the Azure Pipelines. But if you, for example, if you go to GitHub and look at the basic tutorials, there is going to be labels to be used, kind of they're talking about in the concept of chat ops. So during the pull request, the team member of the contributing to the pull request is adding a label that is associated to GitHub action that is listening that label. For example, deploy to staging. Then if that label is added to the pull request, then that action gets triggered, and that can be associated to, for example, deployment to Azure environment that is dedicated for staging. So there is a workaround for kind of these approvals, but they are not so rigid that Azure Pipelines has. At the same time, I think that is something that is under the works currently in GitHub Actions for Azure. Package management. So GitHub has this GitHub packages, which can provide, well, public but also private packages for the team and for your organization's own usage. So there is support for NPM, Maven, and Gradle for Java, Ruby, and NuGet. Didn't find any information about Python, which was weird, but put on the comments if you know that there is a Python packaging support in GitHub packages. Then there's a cool thing that there's a container registry inside GitHub. So the GitHub packages is providing also as an image registry for Docker images. And that is not something that you can find in the Azure artifacts at all. But that's kind of a logical because Azure has this Azure Container Registry, and I suppose when Microsoft team who built the Azure Artifacts product, they wouldn't be doing a competing product or feature inside Azure DevOps, since we have already a service in Azure that provides that. But yeah, this is working just nice also. And a little bit different support though. So there is the Python packages which are supported by Azure Artifacts, but I think the Ruby gems are not. One unique thing that Azure Artifacts provides, you can have an upstream source also configured your private feeds. So if you have your NuGet packages, your company NuGet packages, internal NuGet packages feed, then the upstream source for nuget.org, so the public one, they can be upstream through, so your feed can upstream those packages as well. So this is a way to have a mechanism in your development that you can, if you want, you can restrict what kind of packages are available from third-party feeds or upstreams. So could be done like this. Of course, then it's as a development practice, then you cannot allow the team to connect straight to the NuGet.org, but they have to always use the company's own private feed as the only source for legit packages. Then the last big area or product area is the acceptance testing. The Azure test plans provide really nice experience and actually even quite advanced functionalities for planning testing, executing testing, and tracking of those test results, and even the how your test plans are currently, what's the design state of your planning. You can have also, there's this quite nice test and feedback line for, especially for web application testing for Chrome Edge and Firefox. So you can have this, if you look at from the test and feedback client in the extensions gallery, you can find this one that is related to Azure test plans, and that can be used quite nicely to, you know, make a screen capture, some notes about your test session, associate that feedback to some work item in the Azure Boards, and even record audio and video of your test session. So if you are too lazy to give notes, you can just record yourself and tell what your opinion is. You can, from that feedback client, you can also create work items such as bugs, which is then, of course, filled with the test session information. In the GitHub side, I didn't find any tooling for acceptance testing, but of course, perhaps, you know, they are using the project Kanban board, perhaps to coordinate the testing of manual tests. Okay. Integration, really shortly, connect from Azure Boards. You can connect from GitHub side to Azure Boards or from Azure Boards to GitHub side. So over here I have a solution that is doing that latter part. So if you look at project settings, there's GitHub connections, and then you start your wizard. It's just going to ask about your credentials to and your account in GitHub and so on. And then you select what repositories do you want to connect with this project. You need to be Azure project admin to do this, and on the GitHub side, you need to be the admin of the repository. There's one recommendation. If you do connect some GitHub repository to Azure Boards, do not connect that same repository to another different Azure DevOps organization, because otherwise the syncing mechanism may have a weird anomaly. So don't do that. And well, I just recorded one GIF for here. I am doing some change to file and having a commit there. And in the commit message, I will be using the special syntax AB hash and then the work item ID. And if this kind of a commit message is used, then this commit is associated to the bug, and in more you can see that it's going to be moving to resolved. Okay, something happened there, but it's going to be moving to resolved there. So let's do that in live testing. So okay, let me look at the boards here. So perhaps doing a new one, new story here in Azure Boards. Sign it for me, for example. Then make a change to some code. Let's use the same file here. Oh, yeah, I need to be not in the tag, but branch. And let's do some small change and have that. It can be in the title or in the description. Let's do it in the description. Test integration with AB Azure Boards. So this special, this is going to be, first of all, if I use this fixes or fix verb, then it's going to also change the status over here. So let's do 10. Oh, sorry. AB issue the work item ID 1748. And if I would have a more, well, let's fix also that 17 over here. So fixes AB 1737. And let's actually do that as a pull request. So let's do a pull request. AB integration test. And create pull request. And now, after the merge pull request, it should confirm merge. So you can see that when the pull request was completed, so when the merge happened to the main, those changed to here. And you can see that there are linkage to GitHub. And that's it. And then let's go to the pipeline thing. Linking Azure Boards with work items. Okay, yeah, let's review. The syntax needs to be this, and if you want to just link issue with title or issue with work item, then you just add into the title of the or the description this syntax, and it's going to associate the GitHub issue to work item. And with the commit side, you can in the commit or in the pull request add again the same thing, title or description, and it's associating those to the work items. And if you want to same time also fix them or make them to be in a complete state, then user story will be closed if you use fix word before the mentioning, and bug will be resolved state. That doesn't go to closed state. Well, this is the logic. I don't know why. And that's about the syntax. Integrating GitHub repository with Azure Pipelines. You can do it from the both sides. Again, you can start this process from GitHub with GitHub Actions, or you can start this process from Azure Pipeline side and associate the pipeline to GitHub repository. So when you create a new pipeline, it's going to ask where you want to do, where is your repository, and if you select GitHub, then this process starts. It's going to ask your permission to access, authorize the Azure Pipelines to that repository. And then you select the repository, still the process is that it's going to ask it again. And that's it. That's the integration, nothing else to do. Then you just do your pipeline and start the testing. So when you do commits or pull requests, it's going to start behind the scene the Azure Pipelines GitHub app, and that is going to be building on the it's going to check out, well, doing the things that you have defined in your repository as a YAML file. And it's also, you can, if you can see, there's this details link. If you open that, it's going to open similar looking functionality that Azure GitHub Actions are providing. So the experience is quite similar, and it's integrated inside GitHub, as you can see. So you can, of course, follow the deployment, how it's going on in Azure Pipelines, but you don't have to go away from GitHub. You can follow it also straight inside the GitHub experience UI. And the same goes after the pull request build has been built and it's successful, then all the checks will be passing, and you can also again look at how the pipeline executed in the checks history. Okay, that's it. I think does anyone has any questions related to GitHub or Azure DevOps feature setting, or any comments that I missed the core functionalities in the GitHub side?
Well, at least I think the manual approvals were either announced or implemented during GitHub Universe last week.
So that's the latest news, right? Because I knew that it was coming up, I didn't have time to look at the universe recordings yet, so really good input. Thanks. Anything else? Okay, I'll stop the recording now. And thank you, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks. Sitten Okko, kun toi nauhoitus siellä Teamsissa niin tai Streamissa, niin jaa se vaikka mun kanssa, niin mä voin sitten lataa